All right, we will return to the open meeting and just want to apologize for it taking so long. That was not our intention, but for good reason. So, item 5 tonight is introduction of new hires.
Good evening, President Owens and the board. We're excited tonight. We have quite a few of our new hires with us, as you can see them in the audience. Here in Lovejoy, we have a tradition where we give each of our new hires a pin that's going to represent their next chapter and their professional and the next move in their life here. And then, of course, we also give them an apple to symbolize the importance of them in our schools and our community. So I'm going to ask Ms. Holly Haynes to come up. She's going to introduce her new hires first to our staff. So do you want to go over there to the mic? What? All of you can follow her.
Good evening. I'm Holly Haynes, a principal at Pester Elementary, and I'm excited to introduce to you some of our new staff members this year. And some of them I'm reintroducing to you, and I think they came back just for a second apple. So, or maybe it was my charming personality. That's what I like to think. We're going to start with Marie Cloud. Marie, come on up. Marie, yes, thank you. Marie is going to serve as our K-3 GT teacher this year. This is her 7th year in teaching. She served 5 years teaching kindergarten at Hart prior to. Last year, she served as a guest educator in the district, and I was able to snag her in the hallway, literally in the hallway one day, and say, hey, I have this spot. And so we're excited to bring her back to Lovejoy for her second apple. Next up, we have Miss Diane Dahl. Come on up, Diane. Diane is serving as 4th grade GT Reading Language Arts teacher. This is her 16th year teaching and her 9th year in Lovejoy. Diane has her master's in brain-based teaching, which is very evident when you're in her classroom. Diane spent 1 year in another district and decided to come home. Literally, I said, are you ready to come home? And she said, yes. Next up, we have Miss Brenda Sanchez. Brenda, come on up. Brenda is teaching 2nd grade for us at Pester. Brenda was teaching previously 3 years in California. She also went to college in California while at the same time serving as a Disney princess. She might be really good friends with Pocahontas, I'm just saying. Brenda also has her master's degree in education, and she served as a guest educator in Frisco ISD prior to coming over to Lovejoy, so we're happy to have her. Miss Violet Austin. Violet is serving as our MTSS lead on our campus. This is her 26th year in education. Violet has taught in Oklahoma, Italy, Missouri, and Germany, but she has spent the last 15 years in Texas. She has 2 children, and she is a Lola to 3 granddaughters, and Violet has already added so much value to the work that we're doing at Pester. We're thrilled to have her. Next up, we have Miss Jessica Mallett. Jessica is serving as a 4th grade math science teacher. This is her 10th year in teaching. She taught 1 year in Florida before coming up here, and prior to that, she taught several years in Tennessee. She had many accolades in that role in Tennessee. She has her master's in education, and she and her husband have, is she 18 months old? An 18-month-old daughter who keeps them very busy in their spare time, and she is adorable. And we're so happy to have Jessica on our team. Jessica's partner is Lynette Ramsey. Come on up, Miss Lynette. Lynette is receiving her 2nd Lovejoy apple tonight as well. She's serving as a 4th grade math science teacher. She and her husband have 3 children together. It's her 11th year teaching, her 4th year in Lovejoy. She took a few years off post-COVID, and we managed to talk her into coming back as well. So we're excited. Lynette also has her master's in curriculum and instruction with a specialization in mathematics. We're happy to have her back. Last but not least, Miss Grace Tabolka. Grace is back for her second apple as well. Grace is serving as a special education teacher at Puster. She and her husband have 2 children. Grace spent a year in another district serving in a gen ed role, which when we re-interviewed her, she said that really helped give her another lens for her, the role she's serving in special education. I've already seen that that's brought some great strengths to her role back as a special education teacher. Grace is currently working on her master's degree in special education, and she is almost finished with it. We are excited to give her her second apple tonight and have her back at Puster. And not here tonight, just really quickly, Brianna Ramos is joining us as a first grade teacher. Her 4th year of teaching, she was in Wiley ISD prior. Her husband is serving as the athletic director at Willow Springs. And so we're really glad to have Brianna too. We hope you get to meet her in the future.
Yeah, I know. They came back. Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Thank you. Okay, and we have a couple more introductions tonight. Ms. Claunch, would you come up, please, and introduce a couple of your staff members?
Good evening. I have one here and one that was not able to be here. Miss Kyla Slaughter. She is serving in the role of our AT specialist, assistive technology. She was a previous SLP and is joining us. She's actually a parent in the district and has just joined us this year, but she couldn't be with us tonight. It's her daughter's birthday. I do have the wonderful Judy Hendricks with me tonight. Judy is in her 30th year of education, and she has joined our Lovejoy team as a diagnostician, and she has brought so much already with her. She spent 25 years in Lubbock, or actually in Friendship ISD, and around the Lubbock area. And so she came down here to do some visiting and knew that this was just the place that she needed to be. So we're so happy to have her. So this is Judy.
Oh, and we want to get a picture. Thank you. And I believe Dr. Tinsley is going to introduce two. You can introduce 2 of our. Okay. We're also going to do. We have 2 pre-K teachers that couldn't be here tonight. Sarah Perlotti and Allison Newton. They couldn't be with us, but we've saved their apples for them, and we'll get that to them tomorrow.
All right, Ms. Tinsley, looks like you're ready for the pledge.
I am, yes. So I have the privilege tonight of introducing Mrs. Etta Wilton. Etta, you want to come on up? So she is a 5th grade student at Sloan Creek. She is a fantastic example of what it means to be a Lovejoy leopard. She comes in every day not only ready to give her best, but to help others do the same. Etta regularly goes above and beyond in the classroom and has already sought out multiple opportunities to lead and serve here at Sloan Creek. Her teacher says it's truly impressive to watch her each day to help create a culture where people are treated with kindness, hard work is modeled, and personal excellence in and out of the classroom is a goal for Etta. Etta is also someone who loves to learn about history, including 9/11 today, Patriots Day, and Mr. Romeyer can't think of anyone better to help lead our pledge on this significant day. So I'm going to let Etta lead us.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for the Texas flag. Honor of the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
And in honor of Patriots Day, we have two of our Lovejoy High School leaders. I'm going to ask them to come up, Miss McKenna Adamson and Madeline Smith. McKenna is a senior at Lovejoy High School and has been a Leopard since kindergarten. She is currently the Student Council President, PTSO student representative, and served on class council last year. McKenna also does a lot of volunteer work through the National Charity League. In her free time, she enjoys hanging out with friends and going to the lake. And then we also have Miss Madeline Smith. She is also a senior at Lovejoy High School and has been a Leopard since kindergarten. She is the class council president, the student council vice president, and also volunteers with NLC. Madeline has played for the Lovejoy High School varsity tennis team all 4 years at Lovejoy High School. And in her free time, she enjoys hanging out with friends, playing tennis, and shopping. So Madeline and McKenna are going to share some insight today with us about Patriots Day.
On September 11, 2001, ordinary Americans performed extraordinary acts of heroism. Firefighters and police officers rushed into crumbling buildings and raging fires to save others. EMTs, construction workers, colleagues, and strangers tended to the wounded. Passengers and crew members gave their lives to thwart another attack. And a generation of women and men answered the call of duty by joining our armed forces to defend our freedom and our democracy.
These patriots, people of undaunted courage, uncommon resolve, and unwavering perseverance, are forever engraved in our national character. They are reminders that we are a great country because we are good people. On this Patriot Day and National Day of Service and Remembrance, we pay tribute to the heroes and victims who lost their lives on September 11th, and recommit ourselves to the spirit of unity, patriotism, and service that carried our nation through in the days that followed.
All right. Item 7 is public comments related to September 11th, 2023 agenda items.
No comments.
Thank you very much. No comments tonight. Item 8, Foundation for Lovejoy Schools.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. Main thing we wanted to open up and let you guys know, this is our 20th anniversary. So we're wanting everyone to recognize that, and we want to celebrate this year bigger and better than ever. I'm here, of course, speaking up on the foundation, but we have a huge team. We've got 19 members. We've increased that over the last year with 5 new members. As you can see here, we've got 2 main areas that we consider buckets, but we get to the classroom enhancements as well as safety and security. You can see on the slide here, we've got a total giving last year, 2023 of $667,000. That was broken up of $542,000 roughly for the enhancement and $124,000 for safety and security. You can go to the next slide. You can go to the next slide as well. Our upcoming events, we've designated out here on the slide, but wanted to kind of go through those with you guys real quick. North Texas Giving Day is on the 21st. We will have our team around the campuses, as we always do, trying to encourage giving. Then we have on October 25th, Lovejoy Ladies Night, a pretty big event. It looks like we're going to do a costume party. So, you know, Casey always has fun with that. Casey's trained that this year as well. And then we have our new event, the Lovejoy Tour of Homes. This will be the second one we have this year in November, but we're really excited about that. And looking for sponsorships out there as well. Then our main event is D&D that we have on March 23rd. And that's always a great event with a lot of people involved. And that's really all I had. I just would say that over the 20 years, we've raised a little over $6 million. It's a pretty big nugget for the most part. And we're just looking and want to encourage people. We've set a goal for the last couple of years to be at 30% of household. We haven't reached that yet. We're about that 23 mark. But that is our goal for this year, to really try to encourage and get that goal of 30%. That's all I have.
Thank you guys for all that you do. It makes a huge difference. We appreciate you. We know it's hard work. Not always easy asking for money, but you guys are very creative and do a good job at it. So we are, and our children are grateful. Thank you so much. Any questions,
I
guys?
think I'll go grab a picture.
Yeah, y'all want to come up and get a picture? Sorry about that. Item 9 tonight is a discussion, our board legislative subcommittee update.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I think as we've discussed, we don't have any slides tonight. Today will be a discussion. We did discuss during previous board meetings that we do anticipate, based on some of the activities from Austin, that we do anticipate that the governor will call a third special session. Timing is unknown at this point. We've heard anywhere from September to October timeframe. And as we look ahead to that special session, we'd like to have a discussion as a board as to what our priorities should be as a district. What are the types of things that we'd like to focus our conversations on with the community, with our representatives, with any future visits that we may have to Austin. So we'll just open the floor.
So looking for input for our legislative priorities from you all to evolve our discussion around. A few comments. One is obviously ADA. We're underfunding public schools seems to be very popular at the current time, and obviously for us to be able to deliver on the commitments we all make to our children is to deliver excellence in education and to meet our strategic goals as a district, we have to have funding to do that. And thus far, that's not appropriate, neither in general ed or special education. The other thing that's under attack and being stripped away is local control. The ability for these school districts to be able to reflect the values of the communities as well as meet the objectives of the state. Local control is certainly something that is going away, and that can be monetary and non-monetary. Obviously, it's not as big a punch to us as ADA, but over time, that's probably one of the ones that makes us, that changes the direction of Lovejoy strategically. So those are two that I have on the top of mind that I think it'd be in our best interest to consider, if we could put those on the list.
The one I'd add to that, Barrett, is that our speculation is that the priority that the governor is going to put out for this special session is going to be around what he's calling the ESAs, which everybody else knows are vouchers. And so having one of our priorities around that and how we feel about how that would impact us, I think would be something else to speak specifically to, since that's going to be a key component of the special session. But the other two, I think the subcommittee met last week, and the other two are exactly the priorities we were thinking about as well.
The other one to talk about is recapture and or this tax relief that's ultimately recaptured funds from school districts going to folks for tax relief for their homes. And this whole lack of transparency, for better words. I know that's probably not our legislative priority, but I think certainly the recapture of funds that are intended to educate kids in our district going away from here and then being diversified to other places is a problem.
I think by your first point on the ADA, and I think having a priority around increasing the basic allotment, I think solves a lot of those. So if we talk about increasing the basic allotment, that speaks to that and solves the recapture problem at the same time.
Just philosophically, though, the recapture terminology, the function of recapture in the code and the use of it ultimately is an opportunity for them, long and short term, regardless of what happens to ADA, to hurt us, and or to redirect educational funds to other projects that aren't education related. So don't disagree with you, but to the extent we can capture that component, it would be great.
So just to kind of piggyback on some of that stuff, some of our recent discussions leading up to the special session have been, what we want to accomplish. I think some of that's already been said, and maybe in terms of a priority ranking, I think the one thing that's impacting all school districts in Texas are the issues of funding, the issues of teacher compensation, and the issues of recapture. We attended a recent advocacy summit, and they were kind of going through that and said those are three problems that we have, and there's one solution to fix three problems, and that is increase the per student funding. Y'all have heard us say it over and over again. Texas ranks 43rd out of 50 in per student funding, and is well below the national average in per student funding across the country. So, and I think an important concept in our agenda or our priority items needs to be, increase the basic allotment, which will allow us to have more funding for students, provide more for teacher compensation, and reduce recapture. And then for all those three things, without strings attached, because what we saw in the regular session was all those bills that did those things got pushed to the side or got absorbed into other omnibus bills that did other things, like approve a voucher system for public tax dollars to go to private schools, and drastically increase the amount of government bureaucracy that would be handling those funds and managing those funds. And then also, with respect to, I've lost my train of thought, but anyway, the strings attached. So we've seen instances in sessions where important things that are needed to be done, obvious things that are needed to be done, and that there's lockstep alignment across the state of Texas on, get held hostage over some political gamesmanship with respect to whatever's trending nationally in terms of, a war against public education, or, a war against local control, or things like that. So fix those problems in terms of the funding without strings attached. They can do that, and then they can debate and spend a lot of time debating some of these other issues.
I think everything everybody else has said, but also helping define, letting locally how we define capacity. If some of these other bills pass, we want to make sure we can keep Lovejoy how it is.
Yeah, just maybe piggybacking on that conversation, one thing that's concerning for me is some of the activities that were held during the last session regarding open district borders. So of course today we are all taxed as residents of Lovejoy ISD, and then we have those guaranteed attendance zones. As they break down potentially or state mandate who can come in and out of the district, but yet our taxing program is still collecting from our homeowners. And there's going to be a disconnect where potentially we have our taxpayers funding the education of folks that live outside of our borders. And particularly if we are not able to be funded at the amount that it takes to actually educate a student, or have the state dictate, to Mark's point, how we determine capacity for our buildings.
You wanted a couple, right?
Hey, that's not a lot, so we could go ahead and do that. So if we're good, thank you for the feedback. We would propose that the subcommittee would summarize these items and come back to the board for recommendation.
Great, appreciate that. And thanks for all the work you continue to do on that committee. We appreciate it. Next is a presentation on leadership, Lovejoy, and our Board Academy.
Good evening, board. Our connection, relationship, and transparency with our community is important to us. So we have two programs that aim at just that. You'll recall that last year we revitalized and implemented Leadership Lovejoy, and then we also had a Board Academy. We are launching that information for the 23-24 school year. That information is right here. This is a community-based, parent-based program where we are looking and soliciting applicants at this time to become part of this program. It is a deep dive into Lovejoy ISD operations, and this process that our stakeholders get to go through allows us to build a deeper relationship with them, engage in two-way communication. We tour them throughout the district, and we are really excited about the potential applicants and going through this process again and what we will learn in the relationships that we will build and strengthen. So as I mentioned, as a part of this process, we go through district mission and goals. We go through all of the different departments: curriculum and instruction, operations, finance, human resources, student services. There are tours of all of our campuses and our facilities, the opportunity to meet with our campus leaders and our leaders of these different departments as well. Our schedule is here for our community to look at and see if it works for them. These are full day experiences that run from 8:30 to 3 p.m. Those dates are listed there, and then we look forward to celebrating and recognizing the participants in April, and actually that should say April of 24 at a board meeting. This is the application information. We do charge a $90 fee to cover the cost of the program. That does include a light breakfast, lunch, name tag, shirt, so that we ensure that we give our participants a quality experience. Applications are open now, and they will close at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, September 26th. So we encourage everyone who sees this to share this with their friends and neighbors or apply themselves if they would like to. One thing that we have shared is that if you did not participate in the program last year and maybe participated prior to that under previous leadership, please feel free to apply again if you're interested, because it has been revamped and the district's gone through a transition since that time, and we'd love to have you and your interest in this process. We also have gone ahead and posted the information for the Board Academy that will happen Wednesday, December 6th. We do this on a timeline that allows people to have this awareness prior to any Board of Trustees elections. And most of you all that are up there participated in this last year, and I thought it was a great experience. But we'll host that again. And this does not require an application, but out of a courtesy to make sure we plan for a great experience for all of the folks that participate, we do ask them to RSVP, so we just can make sure room set up and things are arranged appropriately. And so we've got the pre-registration link there. It'll be open up until the time of the actual Board Academy event. Do you all have any feedback, any information that you would like to share about either one of these opportunities?
No, ma'am. Thank you very much. All right, Dr. Tinsley, presentation on K through 12 science instructional materials adoption timeline.
Good evening. Thank you. Yes, we are in the process of adopting new instructional materials for K-12 science. And I'm going to ask Mrs. Mary Mullen to come up to the other podium. She's going to be assisting with this presentation, and she and Mrs. Perkins have a pretty big role in this as well. So just a reminder, if you recall last year, we worked on a math instructional framework. We did that through a grant with TEA and really appreciated the outcome of that. So in our other content areas, the teachers and our department have established frameworks for those content areas. So what this does, it helps kind of ground, it outlines our vision for what science instruction, what we're putting forth for science instruction, or what we believe science instruction should reflect in Lovejoy ISD. So it talks about learners becoming critical thinkers, innovative problem solvers, and competent consumers of science. Also, engaging in research-based science instruction, which promotes curiosity about the world around them and to think critically as they encounter scientific information in their everyday lives. And also, we're committed to providing a strong science foundation so that they can make connections across other content areas and have a choice-filled future in college, career, military training. So just a reminder, when we talk about instructional materials, and I shared this with you all last year, instructional materials are kind of, we put it in 3 different buckets. The first one is the curriculum standards, which are set forth by the state of Texas, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. So that's what drives what we teach in our K-12 science classrooms. Then there are curriculum documents that are driven by the district. So that might be how we align when the texts are taught during the school year, like the scope and sequence. And then there are the actual instructional resources, which we're going to talk about tonight, that we purchase or adopt to deliver the instruction. So I'm going to let Mary start tonight with sharing kind of the timeline on what's been happening in Texas through the adoption of the K-12 science TEKS and the revisions.
Thank you. Good evening. What you see here is the timeline, and it starts with the adoption of the revised standards. As Dr. Tinsley mentioned, under instructional resources, we must change our resources once the standards are revised, right? Because we want to put materials in the teacher's hands that are up to date. So way back November, you'll see 2020, the high school or the 912 science standards were adopted and approved. It was a year later that the K-8 standards were adopted. You'll see in this past spring, we decided as a district to begin to write into our curriculum some of these changes, because if we don't do it now, it'll result in gaps in learning, because they shift things sometimes very dramatically, that we would have kids that in 4th grade didn't get content that they should have got and expected to know in 5th grade. And unless we introduce it early, we will have gaps across the vertically across the content areas. So we did do some curriculum writing to include the new standards. And this fall, K4 actually are implementing what we call overlap standards and the new standards to deal with the gaps. Then you'll see this month, as a matter of fact, we are going to start to review our review process. And we hope to have decided and bring to the board a recommendation in the spring for implementation then in the following fall. So why the changes? Really, the purpose behind the changes are 3 things: to clarify relevance of the STEM standards for our students, to use science knowledge to form a coherent view of the world, and to make science and engineering relatable to students. And how are we going to do that? The focus is on 3-dimensional learning. And what 3-dimensional learning includes are science and engineering practices, cross-cutting concepts, and then the core ideas of the discipline. They're also shifting how science should be taught, from going from focusing on science facts to leading to the phenomena, to shifting to start with the phenomena to drive the actual learning and teaching that occurs. Okay, so it's starting with, why is rainwater not salty? And then building the science behind that. Okay, so it's flipped. And the last thing is the intentional alignment to STEM in the science standards through that dimensional learning practices. As I mentioned, starting now in September, we are forming our adoption committee. And we are asking K-12 science teachers to complete a needs assessment, which is normal when we have new materials come out to know what their needs are. And the committee will look at the needs assessment and look at rubrics and choose a rubric that they want to use to evaluate the products. Then in the months of October and November, the committee members will participate in vendor presentations to learn more about the materials. They will narrow, because you get quite a few offerings, they will narrow down to a viable number that they can work with based on using the results of the rubric that they implement. And then in the December, February timeframe, the publishers will provide campuses with samples. So they have everything there, hard copy and digitally. And the committee members are able to take the samples and work through them and use them while they're teaching, and fill out the rubrics at the same time to evaluate what they think would be most appropriate. And we will also have time for all K-4 science teachers to review the materials at some point, not in the same depth, but they will be available. Then in February, that's when the window opens for community members to view the materials and to provide feedback. And then finally, the committee members will come together to make a recommendation for what should be brought forward. And they will be using the rubrics, the feedback from other teachers and community members. In March, then, I'm hoping that I'll be able to bring forth items for you to review for approval and start the purchase process, because it does take about a month to get materials in. And so it's important we get those in time so that they're properly coded and put into our inventory system, so the teachers have them in time for curriculum writing again in the summer, and they have them in the fall to use in their classrooms.
Any questions about the timeline and the revisions?
Is it enough time in, I think it was March in February for the community members to be able to view all of it, and the committee to take into account what their recommendations were to bring it to the March board meeting?
Yes, it's really up to districts to decide how long we'll have the materials ready. Some districts do it one night, everybody that wants to see them. In the past, we've put ours on display for two working weeks, 10 days.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, Dr. Tinsley, measures of academic progress, map growth assessment implementation.
Yes, thank you. You have, if you have heard from your kiddos, have probably engaged in map testing over the last week. And we are really excited about this and what it can offer our students and our teachers and also our parents. You know, when we have looking at a balanced assessment system, we really saw, we had some good systems in place as far as some common formative assessments and summative assessments, but our interim assessments were probably not where they needed to be. And here in Lovejoy, we really wanted to measure growth over time, and we really did not have an assessment that would measure that growth over time. So Mrs. Perkins, our Director of Elementary Instruction, has been really leading this implementation. We began last spring, and we knew it was going to be a pretty big undertaking because it's change. And when you implement change, you got to bring forward the why. So tonight, we hope that what we can provide you is the why and what the benefits that we're going to see for our kiddos here in Lovejoy. So what is MAP growth and what does it measure? It's really questions. Students will take a test, and it's questions based on the responses are based on the previous questions. So if the student gets that question correct, then it keeps moving them forward. If they do not, then it will kind of back up and the questions get a little easier. So it's going to measure what a student knows regardless of what grade level or or age they are compared to similar students nationwide. So it's normed in that manner. So it's going to address growth over time. So we took our first assessment. We really won't know growth until we take the second assessment, which will be mid-year. So Aaron's going to go into a little bit more detail with you on how that's going to look throughout the year.
All right, good evening. All right, so you're going to begin to hear the term RIT score. And what a RIT score is simply just a unit of measurement. So if you think about, we measure height in feet and inches, we measure how well or how much our students know on this assessment through a RIT score. And the RIT score represents the student's current level of achievement regardless of what grade they're in. We also use the RIT score to track growth. So like you might measure your child's height on the wall, and over time you track how much they've grown using that unit of measurement. Same thing with a RIT score. We're going to track it over time and ensure that students are growing, and it'll allow us to figure out where their gaps are so we can meet those needs and make sure they're growing. And then they will receive a RIT score in each of the areas that are tested, and we're going to discuss that in just a second, the different content and grade levels that they'll take this assessment in. All right, so courses and grade level. So there are 3 areas right now, 3 main areas that our students take the MAP assessment. In language arts, all students K-12 will be given a reading assessment. For language usage, which is primarily conventions and editing and revising in their writing, that will be given at 7th grade all the way through English 1. It is optional at other grades, so there could be other grades that might choose to give that assessment for this year. In math, all students in K-8 will take a math assessment, and then our 3 courses at the high school, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, there's an assessment in that area as well. For science, our students in 5th through 8th grade for this year will all take that assessment, and then our students in biology will take the biology assessment. All right, so some kind of quick facts on MAP. We're going to look at how often this test is given and how long it takes our students. So there are a maximum of 43 questions. No student will receive more than 43 questions. It is not timed. On average, it takes students about 45 to 60 minutes to take the assessment, and we're going to be giving it 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. All right, so you might be wondering, how is this different than a standardized test such as STAR? And so we're going to kind of do a comparison between the two. A standardized test such as STAR is given once a year. With MAP growth, as we just mentioned, we're going to be giving that 3 times a year. On a standardized test, all students receive the same test questions. So on MAP, just as Dr. Tinsley mentioned, it's computer adaptive, so no student's test is going to be the same as another student because it's going to adapt based on the responses that they give. A standardized test only looks at grade level proficiency. So we're looking to see, have they measured the grade level standards that they're currently receiving? MAP growth is different because it's going to measure their achievement regardless of what grade level they're in. So if they're a 3rd grader and they're getting questions right, it might move them into 4th grade standards. Same thing if they're getting questions wrong, it's going to then give them some 2nd grade standards to really pinpoint exactly where their achievement is at the time. And then last, I think probably the biggest benefit of MAP growth compared to a standardized test, typically with STAR, we get the results back after the student has already moved to the next grade level. And while that gives us some information as a district regarding curriculum changes that we might need to make, we don't have the opportunity, or that current teacher didn't have the opportunity to intervene right away for that student. With MAP growth, they're going to get the results immediately. So we'll be able to intervene and provide interventions for that student to help build those gaps while we still have them here in that current school year. All right, so MAP growth is going to give us some great information for our campuses to help our students. Like we've talked about, it's going to help us monitor their individual student growth. It's also going to help us pinpoint the skills and the standards that the students are ready to develop. It's going to tell us, based on how they performed on the test,
which standards they are ready to receive instruction in at this current time. It'll also help us set some goals with the students to, have some conversations with them. This is where you're currently performing. These are some skills that you could use extra support with, and we're going to help you in that area. And then we can come back later and discuss with them if they've met their goals or not. And then from an administrator standpoint, it's going to allow them to really track the progress of a grade level or the whole campus. All right, parents are also going to get some very valuable information from this assessment. After each administration, they'll receive the MAP family report, and that report is going to give you 4 main pieces of information. It's going to give you the RIT score for each subject area that the student tested in. It's going to tell you what the national average for achievement is across our nation. It's going to give you a percentile for achievement so that you know if your student scored in the 80th percentile, they scored better than 80% of the students in that grade level at that point in time across the nation. And then a percentile for growth, like Dr. Tinsley said, starting after the second administration. So we have a data point to compare it to. And then this is just an example of what that report will look like. You'll see information regarding each of the content areas. It's a little fuzzy, but information regarding their achievement as well as their growth. All right, so how can parents help at home? There is a website that we wanted to make sure that all families know about. It is warmup.nwea. And when you go to this website, it's going to give you some great tools that you can use with your kiddos at home. So it's going to give you some videos about the purpose of MAP, and they're kid-friendly for our younger students, plus some ones that are more appropriate for older students as well. It's going to let the student kind of explore the tools, use the highlighter, use the sticky notepad, the different tools that it has to help support them on the test. It's going to also give them some practice test items. So if they want to practice at home and get used to the format of the test, they can definitely do that on this website. All right, our schedule for the year, we are currently in our beginning of the year testing window, September 5th through the 15th. Then we'll come back after Christmas at the beginning of February and have our middle of the year testing, and then again at the end of the year, a little bit longer testing window since we have other tests going on at that time. We'll give teachers additional time to complete that end of year testing. All right, and then the types of questions, mainly multiple choice for our younger students. You'll see some drag and drop questions, but again, the practice test on this website, warmup.nwea, will definitely give you a good glimpse of what those sample test items look like.
Okay, and just to want to point out that questions, if they're whether the student information is secure, the information that NWEA, the company that does this, the only thing they have is they don't have anything that would have anything personally identifiable information about a student. So it's only what we provide them, so they would not have the student's name or anything like that. It's just the data point with the student. So we wanted to make sure that we lifted that out as well. And then what steps has the district taken to train staff and communicate with parents? As I mentioned, we started this work last spring. Preparing our teachers. We brought in trainers from MAP Growth, and we have a training plan scheduled that will carry forth this year. So we knew that the implementation was going to be kind of big for our staff, so we wanted to prepare them. And this is also discussed by the administration during team huddles back in the spring as well. And as of August, we came back and did some additional training with core leaders on campuses, teacher leaders, so that they could have support on the campus. And then we are also, after we're doing presentation 9 as far as notifying families, and we did an FAQ that was sent out last week to our families. And then we're doing additional training to train teachers and administrators on how to actually interpret the reports. So this is an ongoing training piece that we'll have with MAP Growth. So any questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I actually had this tool when I taught in the district I was in, and it was one of my very favorite tools. It provides so much for teachers, students, and parents to really have a snapshot. So I'm really excited. I think it'll help with like advancing people and remediating both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's similar feedback, Amy, that we've received. I was at a breakfast last week and there were some parents there that had been in prior districts and were super excited because they saw the benefits as well, both sides, remediation, but also acceleration opportunities and just a better way to monitor. And then teachers who have worked in other districts that used it were very excited about this as well too. So our hope is that we're going to be coming back to you after a few months and giving you an update on this and how it's going.
Sounds great. Thank you all so much for the information. Item 13 tonight is Dr. Tinsley. Again, consider an act on the Collin County Community College Memorandum of Understanding.
Hey, I don't have a presentation for you, but this is our annual MOU with Collin College. Just to give you a little bit of information, some changes that we've added a couple of courses. We've added U.S. History 1 and 2 this year. And then we've also added the Health Science Theory Clinical as well. In the MOU, one of the changes that you will see is that we added some verbiage about having access to the syllabi at least 5 days prior to the first day of instruction. So we did make some adjustments with the MOU compared to the last one. So.
Questions for Dr. Tinsley? If not, I'd consider a motion.
I move we approve the MOU with Collin College.
So moved.
Second.
So moved. Amy Smith, second. Marvin Bobo. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right. Mr. Willman, Mr. Willman, consider an act on the request for proposal for special education contracted services.
Good evening, board. The green light's on, so I think you can hear me. Okay. I don't have a presentation either, but tonight we are bringing forth a recommendation to approve awarding a few vendors that responded to Lovejoy ISD's request for a competitive sealed proposal. Lovejoy ISD developed the request to satisfy procurement requirements, and the reason for developing this request is due to the increased demand for contracted services for our special education department, mainly to fill vacant positions that we're having a hard time filling right now, such as our diagnosticians, our LSSPs, and SLPs. So the utilization of the contracted services will support the necessary compliance timelines. We did have 8 responses prior to the August 15th deadline, but we determined the best value offered were 4 of the 8, which were Flex Ed, National Recruiting Consultants, the Stepping Stones Group, and Sound Start. So with that being said, the administration recommends approval of the award of a new contract to the 4 previously mentioned vendors to provide a wide range of special education services for the 23-24 school year.
So just to reiterate, it's within the budget that's currently been adopted, correct? Not to exceed.
That's correct. It's just going to be
350,000.
more of a geography out of payroll, moving out of payroll into contracted services.
Got it.
But because the overall cost is going to exceed 50,000, we had to follow the procurement requirements.
Questions, folks? No.
So out of the 4 that you're asking to be able to use, are there a certain set number of hours for each one, or whichever one has the best services, we can use them for more hours?
Allison, would you like to answer that question?
We've got about 175 reevaluations that will need to be completed this year, and that does not include any initial evaluations that come forward. We've got, I know Flex Ed is about 25 hours a week for sure. I know they have a diag that is about 25 hours a week for sure. And then the other ones we'll just start reaching out to once the proposal is
Determined depending on.
yes. We've got 2 full-time diags on staff right now, and we have positions for 4.5.
If there are no other questions, I'd consider a motion.
I move that we approve the request for proposal for special education contracted services.
Second.
So moved, Julie McLaughlin. So moved, Julie McLaughlin. Second, Mark Wheelis. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Julie, I apologize. I'm not real sure where that came from. All right, item 15, consider and act on a 3-year safety audit summary. Mr. Percival.
Good evening, Board. President Owens, Superintendent Cordell. So this evening, during a closed session, the board and Superintendent Cordell were able to go through and review and have discussion around the required 3-year safety audit that the Texas School Safety Center and TEA require. This audit was completed during the spring and into the summer. Our Director of Safety and Security, Mr. Littlefield, headed up a committee that consisted of district employees, campus employees, as well as members of the community. And so it was a very thorough instrument that the Texas School Safety Center puts out. But tonight, so the Texas Education Code 37.108 requires the school district conduct the safety and security audits of all facilities at least once every 3 years and to report the results to the Texas School Safety Center. The district safety and security audit team has reviewed the district safety and security audit report to be submitted to the Texas School Safety Center in accordance with Texas Education Code 37.109B, sections 3 and 4. And the Board of Trustees have received a report of the results of the safety and security audit pursuant to Texas Education Code 37.108. Texas Education Code 37.108 grants the Texas School Safety Center the authority to determine manner of submission. Senate Bill 11 amended the Texas Education Code requiring that the district's Board of Trustees and superintendent sign the district audit report submitted to the Texas School Safety Center. The Texas School Safety Center requires an electronic submission, which does not provide for written signatures. So tonight, the administration recommends approval of the following motion that you can see there.
So just on behalf of the board and I know administration and the community, for everyone involved, the time and effort it took to put this together, the thoroughness of which it was done and the detail, we are very grateful. We've said before, and I'll say it again, our safety and security program has been second to none and has become a fundamental component of our success and our enjoyment of education here in Lovejoy. So just wanted to say thank you to all those involved, and we appreciate it.
And I can echo that real quick, President Owens, with every committee member that Mr. Littlefield assembled, and all the campus administrators and staff that were involved whenever it was their time to conduct at their campus. Everybody took it extremely serious, and it was a very thorough process. But you're absolutely right. We're in a great place.
Okay, so I move to approve the resolution authorizing submission of the safety and security audit report in the manner required by the Texas School Safety Center as presented by district administrative staff.
Second. So moved, Amy Smith, second. Jeff Wood, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Item 16, consider an act on the use of bond funds for HVA system replacements. Mr. Percival.
I'm sorry, I'm bent over trying to get down here where everybody can hear. So throughout throughout the year, but especially over the past couple months for obvious reasons. Our maintenance team has gone out and done service, a lot of preventative maintenance, service, and some repairs to our HVAC systems around the district. They've identified 2 systems in particular that are at end of life and are now not cost prohibitive to continue to Band-Aid and try to keep up operational. One system is over at our grounds department building. They're close to transportation. The other system is actually at the transportation building. A couple of things that I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of. These systems are, one system is 17 years old, the other one is 20. They use the old R22 refrigerant, which is exponentially more expensive than current standard, which is the 410. And I do want to note that we do have the majority of our systems district-wide are still on the R22, just for future planning. I promised Alex Roman that I would put that on the radar tonight. That's something he's very concerned about, just long-term wise. But the first one, the system has a refrigerant leak. It also has a faulty compressor, and the heat source is electric, which is not energy efficient. And so that one is the one over at the grounds department. I'm sorry, you guys can't see that, but it should be in the board book. And the second system that I mentioned is over at transportation services. Same thing with that one. It's got the old style R22. That one's actually 23 years old. And it's got a leak at the evaporator coil. There are amp surges on the blower motor due to a faulty control board. And that one also is electric for its heat source. So for these both, we've gone out and kind of had an evaluation completed, and we're able to actually size down because of the efficiency of new systems. So we've worked through ACIS Innovative Solutions, and they've put together some quotes that we feel would best meet the needs. One is a 2-ton split system heat pump, so it would give us more efficiency. That one's over at the department, the grounds department, and the other one is a 3.5-ton split system heat pump for our friends over in transportation.
Kyle, just a quick question. Assuming that, I know that parts of the community have natural gas and others don't. Our campuses, do you know which ones have natural gas and which ones don't?
I do not off the top of my head. I know we've got a couple of propane tanks here in the district, but I'd have to do a little bit of research on that.
Yeah, the heat pumps are more efficient than propane for sure. Just depending on the natural gas. Curious. It was a side note, I guess. I'm sorry, guys. Any questions for Mr. Percival on the request?
So just for the benefit of rounding out the presentation, it looks like the total cost of both projects is $15,392.85 and would be paid for out of bond funds. It looks like the recommendation being made is approve of HVAC system replacement projects as presented in an amount not to exceed $17,000 of bond funds. Is that?
That's correct, yes, sir.
So moved, Jason James. Second, Amy Smith. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Consider an act on the approval of the school marshal resolution.
So tonight's executive summary simply says the administration recommends consideration be given to act on the school marshal resolution. You have a copy of that resolution, and I want to provide some context as to why. We've had an opportunity to go out and as you guys know, add a seventh marshal to the unit. And the opportunity that we had was actually to bring in someone that's a commissioned peace officer. He was able to work out an agreement with the police department that we were able to bring him over from, so that he could stay on and keep that license intact. So he's able to maintain as a reserve. So he's able to maintain that peace officer's license, which gives him some latitude here within the district. But because the TCOL state required course for marshal is not going to be offered until December, we wanted to make sure that while he's here working in our district, that he could be armed. And so he meets criteria since he does have that active licensure by the state, and he's going to maintain that. But your resolution is going to explain that, and we just need that in place so that we can buy ourselves some time to get him through that program that's currently not offered until December.
You have the motion there in front of you, and you're on page 126.
Yeah, and so briefly, I just, I hate to take another opportunity to point out what the state is attempting to do. So it's my understanding they've mandated that every campus have a armed guard at every campus by September 1st. And a lot of school districts, I assume, are choosing to use the school marshal program. Is that?
I would say that's an accurate statement. I know that Casey's been contacted by many districts in the area about the program.
Yeah. But yet the governing body or the educating body that's going to offer the certification, they're not offering any classes until December, or the next class until December?
That would be correct.
All right.
Or I guess we're guaranteed to get him in that class in December. Have we already, or are we?
He is on the list. I don't know that there's any guarantee, but he is on the list for the class.
Yeah, I move to approve the resolution authorizing Sean Tomlinson to be in possession of a concealed handgun on school property at school-sponsored or sanctioned events and at school board meetings in accordance with all regulations and rules applicable to fully trained school marshals.
Second.
So move Marvin Bobo, second. Mark Wheelis, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, item 18 is a discussion item tonight for you all to give feedback on our board goals, our plan on a page, our superintendent goals and district priorities. So you guys have all of that with you, and I would just open it up for discussion at this point. You guys have any input?
I think it'd probably be good to give a little context that we actually spent time in our team of 8 training, formulating and discussing all of these priorities and goals for our board, along with superintendent goals. So really thrilled that we got to take that time to do that. So we are able to really not only evaluate Katie and her goals, but ourselves as well, and to set that target in advance. So I don't know how much discussion we're going to have right now because we've already had 3 hours of discussion about it. So I just wanted to give context around where these came from.
So I hope the community will take a little bit of time to review our plan on a page, the transparency we wanted to create to further enhance to you all what our focal points are. The district mission to propel every person to personal excellence, our core values, which you've heard more than once: one heart, one Lovejoy, kids come first, and best today, better tomorrow. Our district priorities, 4 of those listed there, in our board goals, 5 of those, and then our commitments to culture. And from that, the superintendent goals are derived in further detail for execution at the district level. So just to share those comments. All right. Thank you very much, board, for that discussion. Next item is item 19, and we're bringing this up now for discussion. Obviously, all these items, so that we can present and adopt these at our board meeting, our governance norms and protocols and operating procedures for our board of trustees. Is there any input, suggestions, or recommendations on changes? Again, to echo Amy's comments, in our team of 8, we did a pretty thorough review and worked with our third-party consultant to give some outside looking in evaluation. But any comments on our procedures?
I don't recall there being a lot of fundamental changes to the prior year's operating procedures and governance norms, protocols, and operating procedures.
There were none. Just giving you guys another opportunity before we bring it to the board for adoption. So, all right. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about that. And with that, we would be adjourned.